So what is your illness and how was it diagnosed?
So I've got ulcerative colitis, which I was diagnosed with back in 2012. I had it probably for about a year, where I suffered from really bad symptoms, but it wasn't diagnosed. And I didn't really know what it was until I got before I got the diagnosis, I'd never even heard of it. So it was quite a weird experience getting told that like I've got this for life. And it affects my large colon, like my large bowel. So yeah.
And how did that kind of happen? How did you get that diagnosis? Were you experiencing a lot of symptoms? What did you have to go through?
I experienced loads of symptoms, and to be honest, when I look back, I sort of don't really know how I just thought it was normal, or how I got through it for as long as I did without sort of getting treatment and and getting the correct diagnosis. I started to get it kind of got progressively worse over the course of the year before, and it started off with just kind of like going to the toilet more, and then it got to the point where like at its worst, I was going to the toilet constantly all day, and then when I needed to go, like there was like no time. I couldn't hold it in. It was awful. I got severe pain. I also got like things which I found out like since were related to having like an inflammatory disease and having a disease which is obviously something that affects the immune system. I'd get like joint pain that was just completely like I couldn't ever find a reason for this joint pain, and obviously like with part of my job, like that was quite a difficult thing. It was I was picking up injuries which were like unexplained, and then I'd get problems with my vision as well, things which all like when I got the treatment and like I found out what it was, all of those things improved and like went away. So it was difficult. It was definitely a difficult year, which like when I didn't know what it was, but as soon as I kind of got the diagnosis, I actually felt like a bit better, because I knew that like I knew that there was something wrong, and like that way I was feeling wasn't normal.
Like a weight lifted off your shoulders.
Exactly, yeah. And I know a lot of people that have IBD, they get a lot of times it's misdiagnosed as IBS, and a lot of people sometimes don't let on how bad it is, and then so it was it's really easy to miss, and especially if you don't know what you're looking out for. So thankfully I didn't let it go on as long as I know a lot of people have. So
yeah, and I think for a lot of people it can be quite a embarrassing and vulnerable topic to touch on. So thank you so much for being so brave and vulnerable, sharing your story with us now. But I know that a lot of people do probably keep it to themselves and get a bit worried about sharing, whether it's with their doctor or their friends or their family, because the symptoms unfortunately can be quite tough to talk about. And what would you say a bad day is like for you?
Yeah, to be honest, like a bad day is probably just where thankfully I've had it since 2012, but I've only had a real like bad flare in 2019, 2018. I've had like a few like mini flares, but I had a really, really bad one back sort of then. So I had quite a few years of having it in remission, but a bad day is probably, just being in constant pain, loss of appetite, like just feeling completely fatigued, like completely wiped out. However much sleep you get, like you just don't ever feel energetic again, whilst you're sort of going through that. And just going to the toilet a lot. Sometimes it's like you say, like some of the things with it are quite embarrassing, and I do completely understand like why people are scared to talk about it, because it's it's not the most like easy thing to talk about at all. So there is a bit of a stigma around it, and I think talking about it for me is like something that helps me feel like less embarrassed. And I also think that when I hear other people talking about it, like definitely makes me feel more comfortable. So there's like strength in sharing your story.
Yeah, completely agree. I think awareness around it is so important. And actually, I had no idea that anyone else really had it. So my mum has it, and I've had it, and I got diagnosed around the same time as you did. Actually, I was 13, But I didn't speak to anyone about it really. And then just hearing other people and then hearing that you had it, and also athletes as well, I just think that's so inspiring, because it is such a debilitating condition. Sometimes you can feel completely fatigued, like you were saying. That's
Yeah.
probably the symptoms that I experience the most, and you just physically can't really get out of bed when you're having a flare up. You feel so drained. So it's amazing that you have gone on to achieve such great things as well, and I bet that was a huge challenge that we can touch on a bit more too.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you wish people did know about ulcerative colitis?
I think probably the one thing would be that someone can be really struggling and not show it. I think that's probably the thing which I found hardest, and a lot of other people, well, pretty much everyone, I think, that has the condition really struggles with the fact that it is an invisible illness. Like, people will say to you, "Oh, you look fine, so you're surely fine," and it's like, no, I'm like really, really poorly. And because it's invisible, there's also that stigma of like, you almost don't want to talk about it. Yeah, the symptoms are embarrassing, but also you don't want to make it a problem because no one can see it's a problem. It's not like something you can see. So I'd say, yeah, to anyone that doesn't have it, or like, the thing I'd want people to know is that, like, although people can look absolutely fine and look healthy, like, they can be really struggling inside. So I guess, like, encourage people to talk about it and not bottle it up. And like, people are really guilty of like just trying to deal with it on their own and try and battle it on their own. I think that's the worst thing you can do, because it definitely affects, like, you know, your happiness and your mental well-being as well. Because, you know, when you feel like that, like, it's such a, like you say, like, draining, you know, feeling, that you feel down, like you don't really want to socialize. Like, there's all these things that come with it. So like, definitely encourage people to speak about how they're feeling and how they're doing.
Yeah, completely. And also there is that connection with the gut and the brain. So even
Yeah.
for the average person, if their gut health isn't thriving, then their mental health is it's going to take a toll as well. So especially for people with IBD, that can have a huge impact on your mental health, which people don't realize. And I think alongside having the condition itself, that has a huge toll. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's really good advice. And do you find that nutrition plays a role on your condition?
Definitely. Yeah, I think obviously everyone's condition is completely different. Like, I read something the other day that it was, you know, the people's conditions are as individual as like their fingerprint, and or like, everyone that has IBD, like, their symptoms are all so different. And I think that's so true. You know, not one person I've spoken to experiences the same sort of journey with it. But for me, like, food does play a role, and I think, and that's probably quite common, but it's probably different foods, but probably quite a general theme. You know, when I'm healthy and like when it's under control, I can eat pretty like normally. Like, I'd say that there's not a lot of things that I have to restrict or that I avoid. But when I'm going through a flare, putting anything through, like, or eating anything that is hard to digest, or that you know, is something that probably even the normal person with a healthy bowel struggles to digest, like, that really, really triggers my symptoms. So especially like times where I'm not feeling very good, I'll be really, really strict with what I eat, and just make sure that I eat foods that I know won't upset me, and can almost like help me feel better rather than, you know, make it worse.
Yeah, definitely the power of nutrition is huge. And have you found that just having a healthy, well-balanced lifestyle does help you to manage your symptoms?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things with UC and IBD. Like, the you know, any doctor I've spoken to or anyone that I've come across in the community, they encourage you to have, you know, a balanced diet. They encourage you to be fit and active and healthy, and like, all those things help the gut. And so it's, yeah, it is massively important. And like I said, like, when I'm healthy, I eat like really, really well. I have a I try and eat just a really healthy, like, all-round diet. And yeah, like, nutrition is a massive part of it. But not just, I think, not probably just for people with IBD, but just for general gut health in in the general population.
Yeah, for sure, getting all those fruits and vegetables in. Have you tried our meals?
Yeah, I have. So the ones you sent me in lockdown, I absolutely love them. And to be honest, like that's one of the perfect things for IBD. Like when I've got like I mean, I wasn't in a flare in lockdown, thankfully, but it's great to know that like if I am, that I could try have one of your products, because the thing they always say to avoid is like uncooked veg or raw veg. And when it's broken down, it's so much easier for the body to digest. So like, I love fruit and I'll eat, berries and everything all the time and like every day. But having them with like, the skin on, or having apples with the skin on, or anything like that, it like just really upsets my tummy. So anything where it's blended and like broken down, it just, you get all that goodness, but without the sort of,
Yeah, the convenience of having them as well, so that when you're not feeling so up to it, they're just there ready to put in the microwave or however you want to have them.
Yeah, and exactly.
Have you found that COVID and lockdown has affected your symptoms? Because obviously that's a stressful time and stress has an impact.
Yeah, I think that's obviously one of the triggers is stress. And definitely at the beginning of lockdown, when everything was really uncertain, and for everyone it was a really stressful time. For me personally, I was only a couple of weeks away from like our Olympic trials, which were going to be in April. So it was a really sort of quite a stressful time in swimming. And then it was stressful in the fact that that it then got cancelled, and then we went into lockdown. So there was a lot of things going on at once. And so it was a pretty stressful time, like I'm sure it was for everyone. But I did notice that I was quite unsettled. Thankfully, I've been on medication that's kept me really healthy. So it wasn't, I didn't go through a flare, but I do still have like days where my symptoms aren't as good. Like I still have like a bit of a wobbly day, but thankfully on the whole it's not been too bad. But stress is a massive thing that you need to try and control as best you can when you have that.
And do you have any tips for anyone who finds it quite difficult to manage with their stress?
I'd say the biggest one is talking to people. I think if you are going through a flare or you are stressed, trying to deal with things on your own is literally the worst thing you can do. I believe so strongly that talking about it with people does alleviate some of that stress, as hard as it is. And I think that's something that people do struggle with, and I completely understand. Like, you don't want to feel like you're being a burden, and you don't want to sort of sometimes ask for help, but it does seem to, if I am stressed, talking about it with those around me, that like my support is my family and friends, and it helps a lot. I'd say that's probably my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, a worry shared is a worry halved, that saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Really true, yeah. And on that note, please can you leave our customers with something inspirational that you tend to live by, or a quote that you like?
I've got a few quotes I like. I'm not really sure. Like, my favorite one is probably, I know it's really cliche, but do what makes you happy. And I guess life's what you make it. And I think that's probably the two things I live by. And I know it's like completely like general, but one for swimming is that like the one I use for swimming is like the more you put in, the more you get out. And you can't control anything, but you can control the fact that you be the hardest worker in the room. Whether you're the most talented or whatever, you can always control whether you're the most hardworking. And I think that that's something that's really like stuck with me with swimming.
And I'm sure our customers can take that into so many different aspects of their life. So thank you so much. You've been so brave, and thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, that's okay. It was great to speak to you.